A midlife crisis is more than just a cultural stereotype. It's a real psychological struggle that can surface between the ages of 40 and 60. Often triggered by aging, loss, or unmet expectations, it can actually lead individuals to question their identity, make impulsive choices, or abruptly abandon long term commitments. While not officially classified yet as a mental illness, the emotional and relational fallout is very real, especially for the spouses and families left behind. This podcast gives voice to those living through the aftermath, exposing the hidden pain, and seeking accountability, healing, and understanding. Thank you for joining us today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. The stories and events discussed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or professional advice. Any names, locations, or identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or real events are purely coincidental. The information presented on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with a qualified expert regarding any decisions related to your specific situation. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the podcast creators. Hey guys, today I've got letters from the fallout. We have voices from the aftershock, stories from Emily, Charlotte, and Brian, all listeners of this show who have written in their situations, what they've gone through, how they're coping, and I hope you'll learn something today and know that you're not alone, that this situation is rampant. Some of these folks have been totally burned by the bomb drop. Some are now no contact and no closure. So you're not alone. This is Listener Letters for Bomb Drop and Beyond. So our first listener letter today is Brian's letter. Brian was 50 when he discovered his wife was having an affair with somebody 10 years younger than her, a delivery driver at the school. They've been married about 20 years. They have 3 kids. And the timing was horrible because some of the older daughters were in college already, and their high school son was about to venture into college, and the financial devastation has really hit the kids in their college years, which has been really, really difficult. So this is a perfect example of where the collateral damage is just enormous. I mean, just enormous. So here we have Brian. He's going to share his situation with everybody. He is now in his mid-50s and rebuilding his life from the ground up. But he's going to do it, and here's his story.
So, after 22 years of marriage and 3 children, my 49-year-old wife started to engage in an extramarital affair with a man 10 years younger than her. He was actually the delivery driver at the elementary school where she was a volunteer. This was indeed our neighborhood elementary school that all 3 of our children had attended and which was only 1 block from our home. The initial bomb drop did not include any disclosure of the affair. It actually occurred on Friday the 13th in July, 5 years ago, after she returned from a week-long trip to visit our daughters at college. We were standing around the kitchen, the kitchen island. Mid-morning, after grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge, I turned around and I put my arms around her shoulders to tell her how I missed her so much while she was gone. I kissed her on the cheek, at which time she pulled away with an expression of complete disgust and stated, I can't do this anymore. Prior to this, there had never been a single indication or discussion by either one of us regarding separation or divorce or I'm not happy with you. In hindsight, I guess I recognized some odd changes in her behavior over a few months, but just consider that kind of normal, since we were both almost 50 and we had been married for more than 20 years. Again, at this time, I was 50 and she was just 49. Well, she spent the next month completely denying over and over that she was in any way involved with anyone. These conversations were usually in response to me reminding her that we had both adamantly promised each other that infidelity would never occur in our relationship. She spent the next month or so starting to go out with her new friends. They were actually teachers from the elementary school, staying out till midnight and beyond while my son and I were at home together. Well, it turns out her new friends were two female teachers at the school who were more than 20 years younger than her. And I later found out that both of those women had very negative reputations among the staff at school, and they were actually arranging for my wife to meet her affair partner. Over these initial couple of months, I dealt with extreme anxiety due to her behavior. Nothing felt right. I lost 30 pounds, going from like 170 down to about 140. I had never in my life experienced any anxiety, and my body simply I just could not accept food, no matter how much I tried to convince myself I was hungry. I survived on cereal and protein drinks. I was only sleeping 1 to 2 hours a night, and not even continuous. I had stretches of 3 to 4 nights in a row where I did not sleep at all. My colleagues at work thought I probably had cancer, but they thought I was keeping it a secret. And then one night, while confronting me about my noticeable weight loss, my wife asked, "Why can't you just grow up and just eat a cheeseburger or something?" Well, a couple of months later, I finally saw the truth of her affair. While she was on one of her nights out with her friends, I found out by discovering naked pictures of her affair partner on our home computer. Yes, the computer that our son used for his homework. She forgot that her email service was the default email on our home computer, and she forgot to completely log out of her email before going out for the night. I found the emails where they were sending naked pictures to each other. I confronted her when she got home around midnight. Her first reaction was to completely deny and play dumb until I proceeded to walk her over to the computer and show her the evidence right there. As I reminded her of the countless conversations we'd had over the years with our 3 children about, how inappropriate, immoral, and unacceptable it is for them to send or receive naked pictures, her response was, "Well, it was a mistake. I didn't ask him to send those pictures. Everyone sends pictures like that anyway. My friends get pictures like that from men all the time. And it actually feels good to know that somebody's interested in me, especially after I've had 3 children." She then told me that she had hired an attorney already, but that she was just going to call him and tell them that she would cancel everything and that we would go to marriage counseling and make things better than they ever were before. 2 hours later, we attended our Catholic Mass with our son like nothing was going on. 10 days later, on New Year's Eve, she went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. She had the papers sitting on the kitchen counter when I arrived home from work. Well, after the holidays, both her father and I, separately, confronted her about her self-professed devout Catholic faith. She told me that she had gone to church several times to pray about it and that God had touched her on the back of her head and told her that what she was doing was okay. I asked her about all the scriptures she had taught our children from the Bible regarding marriage and family, and her response was, all of those things were written by men to try to keep women under their control. My wife had never said anything like this in the 25 years I had known her. A month later, she secretly moved her things out of our house during the day while I was at work, and she moved into an apartment half a mile away from our house. She would stop by and pick up our son every other week and stay a day or two with her so he could stay a day or two with her. Our divorce was finalized that June, 11 months to the day that she initially told me that she could not do this anymore. Well, when it was clear that the divorce was definitely going to go through, um, my son came and asked me, "Dad, is there any way I will be able to keep my room? Maybe, can we keep the house and stay in our neighborhood where all my friends are? And so I can go to school here?" I promised him that I would do whatever I had to do to make that possible. I didn't have the money to buy my wife out of her share of the house, so I negotiated with her and pretty much shamed her into not forcing the immediate sale of the house. She agreed to delay the sale until our son graduated from high school, and I had to agree to give her the majority of the equity in the house. Man, I was sole provider for our family as she was a stay-at-home mom for almost the entirety of our marriage. So after divorce, I was required to pay her $4,000 a month alimony for a term of 10 years, and also child support, even though we agreed to 50-50 custody of our son. Well, for the first 2 months following divorce, our son basically lived out of his oversized gym bag, which he shuttled between our house and her apartment down the street. He told me he didn't see any reason to unpack his clothes since he would just have to pack them up again in 7 days. Hearing your kids say that, it breaks you to your core. This is not what I envisioned for my marriage and for my family. So 2 months later, he basically just stopped packing his bag and going back to his mom's apartment every other week. When I asked him about it, he said, he just decided he just didn't want to do that anymore. And my wife, ex-wife, did not express any objection at all, likely because this made it far easier for her to embrace her new independent life. For me, this meant I no longer had to watch my son walk out the door every other week, which destroyed me. I continued to pay $500 a month child support for the next 3 years, even though he lived with me full time. My attorney was concerned that if I filed to stop paying child support, she could insist that he start spending nights at her apartment. So I was happy to pay the money to make sure his secure living situation was not jeopardized. When my son turned 17, I had my attorney go ahead and file the motion to terminate child support since our son had not spent a single night at her apartment in almost 3 years. She chose to oppose the motion even though it was certain to get approved. This dragged on for another 6 months and ended up costing me over $10,000 just to save the $6,000 per year of child support for the child who had always lived with me full time. Over the last 3.5 or more years, I have been paying almost $50,000 per year of alimony, even though she has been openly living with the affair partner that she cheated on me with. During this time period, my daughters have had to drop out of college and start working before completing their degrees. So my wife is a lifelong Catholic. She attended Catholic school every year of her life growing up. She was actually teaching confirmation classes at our Catholic parish to other people's children at the exact same time where she was carrying on an extramarital affair with the delivery driver. I believe this is referred to maybe as cognitive dissonance. All 3 of our kids went through full Catholic rites, baptism, communion, and confirmation, with their mother standing right there beside them. She actually stood beside our 13-year-old son at his confirmation while fully involved in a secret affair. She was the driving force behind our 2 daughters attending one of the most well-known Catholic universities in the country. Of course, this was before MLC and the affair started. Our daughters subsequently had to drop out of this university after the resulting financial destruction of our divorce. I finally confirmed her affair with absolute certainty a month later while visiting our daughters. My wife declined to join me and my son on this planned trip, and instead, she went to her parents' home for Thanksgiving. One night, while not able to sleep at 3 a.m., one of my daughters was also unable to sleep. She'd been experiencing the same anxiety symptoms as me. As we sat on the sofa in the middle of the night, he finally broke down and shared something that no child should have to share with their parent. My wife had shared with my 2 daughters at least 6 months prior to the details of her affair. At 3 a.m, here we are, with tears streaming down my daughter's face as she confirmed all the details: who this man was, where my wife had met him, how my wife was lying and using her friends from the school to cover her secret meetings. My wife had spent most of the girls' teenage years treating our twin daughters as her best girlfriends, as opposed to having a mother-daughter relationship. She would often refer to herself as the third twin. She regularly stated that when she visited our daughters at college, that everyone thought they were all sisters. She openly shared her extramarital affair with them, as if confiding with her girlfriends. Ugh, my daughters carried the secret around for more than 6 months as they watched their father consumed by anxiety. During this time period, my daughters have had to drop out of college and start working before completing their degrees, and I have had to use the proceeds that I received from the sale of our house to help my son get through his first couple years of college. I am still paying alimony to subsidize the life of the guy who is sending my wife naked pictures, who engaged in an affair with my wife, and who ripped apart my family. Yes, this person makes significantly less than my ex-wife, so she is essentially supporting his life. And I have to continue paying this alimony for 5 more years. Between the equity proceeds that she received from the sale of our family home, half of my retirement, and 5 years of alimony, she has now received about $1 million as a reward for committing adultery and ripping apart her own family. If this is indeed MLC, the consequences are absolutely devastating for everyone other than the MLC person themselves. Thank you for listening to my story today.
And now we have Charlotte, who is going to talk about her bomb drop and how her life was completely derailed and blindsided. I think she described it as the rug was pulled out from under her, like so many of us. So here's Charlotte.
I was married for 27 years. We built a life together, raised a family, weathered the usual ups and downs that come with time. I thought we were solid. I thought we were safe. But then, something shifted. I started noticing a growing distance, a kind of emotional absence I couldn't explain. At first, I chalked it up to stress or midlife changes. We'd been together a long time. But eventually, I found out there was someone else. They had never met in person, but they had developed a deep connection, talking privately, often. She was in a relationship with someone my husband had known for nearly 40 years. When I confronted her, she insisted it was nothing inappropriate. Just conversations, just support. My son even messaged her, asking her to stop, and she told him she wasn't interested in his father. But within a few weeks, my husband said he needed space. He left. Then he flew across the country to meet her for the first time for a long weekend. 2 weeks later, I received a text. Actually, the affair partner's boyfriend and I both received pretty much the same text at the same time on a Saturday evening. It felt like it was written by her, the affair partner. It wasn't written like a man, but in any event, here's an excerpt of what I received. Her and I share a love like nothing we've ever felt before. It existed before we even met in person, which finally happened just 2 weeks ago. I remember staring at those words. 2 weeks. They'd known each other in person for 72 hours. That's how 27 years of marriage ended, with a declaration of love for someone he'd just met, someone who, just months earlier, had denied any romantic involvement. I wasn't just losing my husband. I was watching a stranger take his place. And suddenly, my marriage was over. We had agreed to legally separate. He would continue to help with our shared expenses. But once she arrived, that agreement unraveled. He filed for divorce. And then, out of nowhere, he filed a temporary restraining order against me, claiming that I was harassing him. I had been sending him articles, resources about midlife crisis, trying to understand what had happened to the man I once knew. He also claimed I had physically hurt him. That part was especially devastating because the injury had been self-inflicted. The judge dismissed the order with prejudice, but defending myself cost me thousands of dollars. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. He still has his things in our home. His favorite golf clubs, his shoes, old college photos, letters from his father. None of it made sense. He came by once and looked at our dog like he didn't even know how to pet her. It felt like he had vanished, not physically, but in spirit, like the person I had known for 27 years was gone. The legal process was brutal. He refused to give me an additional month to assume the mortgage, so I was forced to refinance at a much higher rate. He had previously promised to keep me on his insurance until I turned 65, especially important since I'm in treatment for breast cancer. But that promise was withdrawn too, and I had paid our family's insurance for over 2 decades. What hurt most wasn't just the loss, it was the erasure, the coldness, the complete lack of compassion, and the complete lack of no explanation whatsoever. To this day, we have not even spoken at all. One day he's making me breakfast, cuddling with me like always. And the next, it's as if we never even knew each other. I'm sharing this not to shame anyone, not to point fingers. I'm sharing this for anyone who's ever felt blindsided, for anyone who's been discarded by someone they trusted, for anyone sitting in the rubble, wondering what just happened. You're not alone. You will get through this. I'm glad you are trying to bring awareness through your podcast. Thank you.
All right, you guys, now we're going to hear from Emily. Emily was 54 years old when the bomb drop happened, married 23 years, and she filed for divorce and left. We are going to hear Emily's story. It was super destructive to her. She lost a ton of weight, had a really hard time emotionally, financially, total devastation. But she slowly put herself back together, and she is making a major comeback. She enrolled in grad school and is rebuilding her life in her 50s. So here we have Emily.
My story is similar to everyone else. Husband of 23 years, not perfect, but very normal. Happy family, 2 beautiful, talented, young adult kids. I was mostly a stay-at-home mom. My husband owned his own business. We were not economically disadvantaged, and we were ready to head into empty nesting. Some stuff, he started acting a little weird, and I asked him if he was having an affair. He always denied it. Always. Typically, I was crazy. I was playing the victim. I was using the kids and the dog as tools. I asked him to go to counseling. He said, I don't need no motherfucker telling me how to run my life. I believe he went into limerence with a woman he told me he used to fuck while he was in college. Again, typical behavior, giggly, monstering, traveling, gone frequently. He had the dark eyes, heavy drinking. He was on steroids, working out, lying. I discovered he was hiding money in locking cabinets. And during this time, I was in the pick-me dance, totally embarrassing myself, where before I had been fighting back and before that, ignoring him in his obsessive ways. One day, while he was passed out drunk on the living room floor, I went through his phone and I couldn't believe what I saw. I saw enough that 2 days later, I filed for divorce. Him and his affair partner then tried to sue me for breaking into his phone, and for calling her. He then started calling and yelling at me, saying, "You want a divorce? You're suing me. You file for divorce." And he started blaming me as if I was the one destroying our family. I told him very simply, "I will not divorce you if you get rid of the whore." Well, he would not get rid of the whore. The divorce became final, and they are still together to this day. I've seen him go into now what I know is replay, partying with our 21-year-old son. Um, he had no guilt or shame. It was sort of sociopathic behaviors, no feelings at all. People now start to believe me that when I said he was changing and becoming a different person, people now see what I was talking about. They hadn't seen it before because he was such a successful person. He was in business and convincing, and he was convincing people I was crazy, and he's a pro at that. I started to deteriorate greatly. I lost 25 pounds. I was grossly sick. My I kept fighting him, and he runs further. He says I abused him our whole marriage. He says that I made the same dinner too much. He says I was never affectionate for 20 years. He accused me of having affairs with celebrities. Then he went after our 24-year-old daughter. She had seen social media posts that upset her. She heard him on the phone with the other woman. She heard him say stuff like, "Hey, babe, I know you're pissed about this." She got so upset. She called him out and he went off on her. He took her car away. He threatened to get her fired. He pushed her around and monstered her. And they have now not talked in over 3 years. He told me he wanted me to just live with this and die all alone. He didn't care. And he darvoed. He was a pro at that. I ended up going to therapy, but it didn't really help. They would say, "Work on yourself." And, I didn't know what that meant. I was so confused, and I still am. I was normal. He wasn't. Why are they saying work on yourself? Work on yourself. I didn't know what it meant. I was so confused, and I still am. I was normal, but he wasn't. I feel like I took on his pain. I went through the grief process and got stuck in anger. The rage I feel is real. People say, "Oh, well, look how far you've come. You've improved so much. You are thriving." But what choice did I have? I literally had to go learn Maslow's hierarchy of needs and rebuild. I had to get my own place to live. I had to figure out a way to make money. I didn't get any alimony or child support. I finally got a job. I'm now able to put food and water on the table. And I'm slowly finding my self-esteem and self-worth. And finding self-worth and confidence in a way, that's a laugh. When your husband runs off with another woman and how can you find your self-worth? I believe you're lying or faking it because I've been there and I am spent. I've read Facebook groups. I've read Runaway Husbands, dealing with your spouse's MLC. I was kicked off Chump Nation and I don't even know why. I actually think the other woman did it. These sites have helped me, but I'm still angry. But I am a lot better. But still angry. Holidays are hard. I don't want him back. Yuck. But I miss my family, and I miss what other women have. Men who are loyal, honest, and loving, like my husband used to be. Now I have PTSD. I find it difficult to go to grocery stores. I have to stay busy all the time, sort of like create my own little safe place. I do run, I read, I hang out with friends and family and work. I went back to grad school at 54 years old, and I love it. And actually, now I've bought a house on my own, and I'm finally moving forward. And I do have some things I'd like to share. First of all, it's not your fault. I know it's hard to believe and understand, but seriously, you did nothing wrong. Find a support system, one that you can rely on to cry, rage, and get advice from. It's hard to trust anyone, so really find your people. Secure your finances. Even if you believe he won't hurt you financially, even if he says he won't, he will, so go protect yourself. Try antidepressants. Zoloft saved my life. Write down your thoughts, keep a journal. Try to ignore him. I didn't. I begged and blamed myself. I followed him. I cried. But you know what? Nothing will help. So don't do it. Just ignore him. He is not the man you married. And if you have a wife in MLC, she's not the woman you married. Right now, they are a different person. Read as much as you can about MLC and believe it. We all think ours won't do this, but they do, and they will. And finally, give yourself grace. This is, again, very, very hard. You will crumble. You will shatter. You will feel like dying. But if I can get through it, you can too. Thank you for listening to my story today.
Wow. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing from Brian, Charlotte, and Emily today. 3 survivors of probably one of the worst things they'll ever experience in their lives, and they are getting through it. So when you have a super rough day and you think you can't get out of bed or you can't put another foot in front of the other, just think of what they have gone through. And like Emily says there, if she can do it, you can too. I love how she shared those tips at the end. So if you've got a story and you don't really want to be on the audio podcast, you're welcome to send in a letter to mlcbombdrop@gmail.com or message me on Facebook or Instagram. And, I want everybody to feel like their story can be out there, so others can learn and grow and, get the support that everybody needs. Thanks again, you guys, for tuning in to Midlife Crisis, Bomb Drop, and Beyond. We have reached nearly 10,000 downloads. We have hundreds of subscribers, if not over 1,000. You guys, forward moving spouses, you are not alone. Left behind spouses, you are not alone. Those in crisis, you are certainly not alone. This is just crazy how epidemic this has become. I have a waiting list now of people from around the world that I'm trying to get to. And if you've been through a midlife crisis or been impacted by someone else's and you want to share your story, I'd love to hear from you. Hang in there, you guys. I will get to all of you. Please reach out to me at mlcbombdrop@gmail.com and visit us on Facebook and Instagram, MLC Bombdrop. And just remember, your voice matters. Your story could be the one that helps someone else feel seen. It could help someone else feel heard. And it will help somebody else feel understood. You are not alone, no matter where you are in your journey. If the bomb was just dropped, the earthquake just happened, if you are 7 or 8 years in and you're coming out of starting to wake up and awaken to this, um, you are not alone. It's sad that this is epidemic, but we're here to provide support. So until next time, take care and live authentically each and every day. Thanks again, you guys.